And welcome to Substack. I hear something.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now, brother.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Good, good. And I just sent the article to the link to everybody. I'll have to send it a few times so people catch it. How are you doing, man? Did you work all day?
No, I'm on days off, so I'm all right.
Good,
Um,
good, good.
you said you were playing music. What do you play?
I play guitar, but you know what's funny is that was the one thing I couldn't really get into tonight. I just wasn't. First off, I was sitting next to one of my favorite guitar players in town, so it's sort of like, hey, the hand didn't work, even though I've been playing since I was 10 and I'm 56. But I also play tabla, I play Indian, classical music, and so they can't do that. So suddenly that skill came out perfectly, and I'll put a little video up later. But I've been here for 4 years, and I don't put me first, I put Ukrainians first. And same thing with this. I will tell our viewers that part of the way I told the story is that in June 2022, we saw the convergence of Boogaloo Boys going to Black Lives Matters, and for those of us who've been watching those guys, we went, something's up, and that led to essentially what became my 30th anniversary standing in the parking lot in Orlando watching them attack you. And so it's personal on two levels, like personal because they fucked up my anniversary of my late wife and I, and two because a lot of my friends and I really care about you and Sergeant Gonell and Harry and Michael and all the folks we don't know, and we're gonna talk a little bit about why we don't hear the other names up there, but not gonna let it go, bro. Not gonna let it go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep doing this so as long as people keep lying about it.
It's right. And actually, one of the things I often have to do is remind everyone that this hard drive, for all those liars like Enrique Terrio, this hard drive's got everything, baby. I brought it with me. It's got all the videos, all the prequel, all the indictments, everything. I carried it with me to Ukraine because we're not letting it go. Um, we'll let a few people, and we got only got 7, so give them just a few more minutes, and then they'll come in there. So you're still on the force, and that's very important. How are how are things in DC these days?
Well, first of all, I got to give my boilerplate disclaimer. I'm speaking in my
Please,
personal capacity and not on
thank you.
behalf of the city or MPD.
Yeah,
But I mean, we're extremely understaffed. I think we're at a 50-year low in terms of manpower.
right.
So plenty of job security.
Yeah, and not a lot of people will probably at this time want to sign up to be in the force, and I think that that's going to be something we're going to see more problems with over time. It requires a lot.
Yeah, our hiring can't keep up with the retiring and resignations and all that. So, and that's a problem all over the country. Also, exacerbated by um, people leaving to join these federal agencies that are offering these huge bonuses and all that sort of thing.
Right. So I'll tell you what, because this is recorded, some people will catch up later. If you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about your history getting into the police force before January 6th. How long did you serve before that date?
See, I joined MPD in December of 2014.
Hmm.
So I had been there for 6-ish years.
Yeah. And what was like the most intense event before that that require your attention?
Um, Summer of 2020 in general, the Black
Hmm.
Lives Matter protests and riots I mean, we lived at work. We were there 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for,
Hmm.
a month at least. And then only after that, we would get a day off once a week.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it was obviously very peaceful and some of it wasn't. Um,
Right.
One of the days, there was a group that attacked my station where I work out of,
Mm.
and we had to deal with that. And that was, not the same thing as what people know
Right.
me
Right.
for.
And I think that's important because, I have a background years before I got into terrorism research and doing radio that I was an activist, and we had activist organizers that would work with the local police departments to say, we're going to do this and this and this, so no one would be surprised. And isn't that sort of how a lot of people would treat you guys, ahead of time, sort of let you know what was happening? Mostly.
So they didn't talk to me. That was above my pay grade. But it's my
Sure.
understanding that some of them did, and some of them did not. But
Yeah.
we did our best to accommodate everyone. and make sure that everyone was able to exercise their First Amendment rights
Right.
peacefully and safely.
A lot of this has been essentially kind of in some ways over committed. It's been I don't think there's been a lot of ultimate action to defend you guys at the level I think you deserve. But the intelligence showed that this was going to be a little different from what I understand. Is that your understanding?
Are you talking about the sixth?
Correct. I'm sorry. Yes. The fifth
Yeah.
and the sixth, because the fifth was also significant with the Goonier guys showing up a night before. Michael Flan and all those guys had their speech the night before. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we were working for days before, and they had similar rallies in late 2020. I think November-ish. There was one or two around there that
right,
the Proud Boys were at, and yeah, I mean, they don't share any specific intelligence with the officers themselves,
right,
but I was reading things online that made me worried. Um,
sure.
Obviously, didn't know exactly what was going to happen. But yeah,
Do you remember
it
what
was
some of what
considered.
you saw? What some of the things you were seeing that made you concerned, or where you were seeing it even?
No, I don't remember where. I remember reading people talking about maybe attacking like police stations or something like that. So I
Hmm.
thought it might be a similar situation to what we had in 2020. But
Right.
you know, uh, failure of imagination is a recurring theme in American history with regards to, attacks,
Right.
Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and January 6th, and nobody seemed to have considered that, 10,000 people would descend on the Capitol like that.
Well, and it's not. I mean, it's not the America that most of us believe was how we handled things. I remember many elections that went south, and in particular 2016. Um, for me, I kind of go from one day to the next on things like that. You got to recoup and you got to move forward, and you don't get what you want. But 2016 was a gut punch to a lot of people who were really hoping to have Hillary Clinton and wound up with Donald Trump, but they didn't come attack the Capitol.
That's true. Yeah, it was 2016, obviously terrible, but it's been very different. First and
Right.
second, first and second terms, because the first one there was still adults in the room compared to this one,
Right.
where there's no guardrails, no one has any inclination to obey the law, just please their guy.
Do you mind walking through, even though I know you've testified before Congress, and I actually wrote your testimony into the piece I did today, and honestly, every year at Jan 6 since then, we play, all of your testimony so people hear it. But do you mind walking through our viewers, how you remember that day and, just whatever you'd like to share?
Sure. We started at 7 in the morning. Um,
Hmm.
we arrived at our station, which is, for me, is uptown.
Hmm.
We got our marching orders. Our plan was just go down to Constitution Avenue
Hmm.
and stand on Constitution Avenue as people came and went into the ellipse and just be what's considered high visibility. So
Right.
letting people know that the police were there and were watching and we can assist or will assist as needed.
Right.
And that's what we did for the first few hours. Got down there. I was standing outside the IRS building. And, for a while, I thought the worst part of my day was going to be listening to all the taxation as theft jokes from
Right.
the hilarious rally goers. But, they all went into the ellipse. I could see people mixed in with a crowd who had tactical gear. They had helmets, earpieces, backpacks bulging with equipment. They had um, vests that looked like they contained ballistic panels,
Hmm.
uh, tactical boots, all sorts of things that you don't really need to listen to a politician speak in a park.
Right.
But these are not crimes in and of themselves to possess these things, so there's not really anything we can do.
Unless you're brown.
Um, I'm sorry?
Unless you're brown. That's my editorial. Unless you're brown, and then all of a sudden everyone freaks out. I don't mean you guys. I mean that we have seen how they react. You know, the same crowd reacts when all of a sudden black people show up with the same gear. They don't like that. But did you notice one of the things I've always found interesting is that Antifa did not show up. That the left crowd, the opposite, counterforce or whatever, did not show up.
Yeah, I'm never still not entirely sure what Antifa is, but there were
Right.
no. I didn't. There was one guy, like literally one guy, who
Okay. Might have been
um,
right.
might have been antagonistic to the regular crowd, but like
Right.
we very quickly separated him from the others and got him on his way, and that was
Right.
before the bulk of their forces arrived at the
Probably
Capitol.
saved his life because that doesn't seem to be the day to be the one guy in the crowd.
Yeah, maybe.
Right. When, how did you wind up from there to the scene we later definitely know you from? Walk me from how you get to Constitution Avenue to that portal.
Yeah, so I don't, I don't have the exact timestamps memorized, but
Sure, sure, of course. Yeah.
as as Trump is finishing or finishes his speech, people start filing out of the ellipse, going back down Constitution Avenue towards the Capitol building itself.
Right.
And as more and more people are flowing that way, we can hear on the radio from our commander in the field and from officers who are already there that things are getting more and more aggressive over there.
Mm,
That they're having a difficult time, containing and defending the building until eventually they call for backup. They call for my civil disturbance unit, CDU 42.
hmm.
We're a rapid response platoon, which means that we have some hard gear. You see
Right.
the pads that I'm wearing that day. That's
Yeah.
issued to only a few platoons in the city, and they call us out, say that they need our help. So we run back to the vans that we took down there, start putting on all our hard gear, which we can't wear in normal operations because it's too scary.
Sure.
So that delayed us about 15 minutes. Put on all that gear, and we get in the vans, make our way towards the Capitol building because there's just so many pedestrians out. We can't, take the street that's most direct. We got to wind our way through town to get there, and then we get I want to say the northwestern edge of the Capitol grounds,
Hmm.
where we get out, park, get out on foot, organize into two columns, and start making our way through the crowd to the Capitol building itself.
Hmm.
Uh, we initially the further out you are from the building, the less dense the crowd is, and when they see us, they're just, you know, call us traitors, oath breakers, stormtroopers,
Mm,
telling us to remember our oaths, just implying that we're the bad guys, even though we're there to defend the capital of the United States. And so we make our way through them. And as we get closer to the building, the crowd gets more dense, they get more aggressive
mm,
until eventually they attack. And the head of our column, where our leadership is cut off from the rest of
mm.
us.
Okay.
And so we're split up into two groups. I'm guessing the head of our column kept going towards the West Terrace, whereas the rest of us were sort of stuck there. And we were attacked. I was hit in the head from behind by a blunt instrument, and after that, people started, punching, kicking, that sort of thing. People tried to take my gear, and I did lose a lot of gear that day, but I was able to retain my baton. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, then they sort of formed a circle around us and was jeering. Um, One guy asked me how he he told me that we're in a bad tactical position, and I said, "Yeah, no kidding." And he asked me how they can help, how they can get us out of here, how they can help, and I told
Okay.
him to leave, and he said, "No, it's not going to happen." He said the others are coming up from the back,
Hmm.
which means that it was coordinated. That they knew that they were operating as a cohesive unit with
Like a
a
phalanx, basically.
specific objective in mind. This
Yeah.
wasn't, a spontaneous riot or anything like that.
No.
Um, but it was obviously he wasn't going to leave, so there wasn't a whole lot more point in talking at that point. So I just stopped. Um, I tried forging a path through the crowd for the rest of my platoon to follow behind me, and I may have had some success until I turned around and saw that they weren't behind me.
Hmm.
So I went back and found that my fellow officers were being attacked by some other guys, but I slipped by them, I guess. So I started pulling them off my guys by their backpack handles, which was pretty effective
Right.
until
Right.
another guy attacked me. Tried to take my baton. We wrestled for control of it, went to the ground. He kicked me in the chest, and I went to the ground on all fours. The medical mask I was wearing at the time got pulled up over my eyes, so I was on the ground, alone, surrounded, and blind. I thought I was about to be torn apart.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my colleagues were able to free themselves from their attackers and backed me up when I got so I could get back on my feet. And I tried again, forged another path through the crowd. This time I was successful, and my fellows followed me, and we made our way to the defense proper at the West Terrace.
Right.
And that's where, Capitol Police and MPD had a more of a presence. They were holding out a line there, and we held that for some time. Um, Let me get a drink real quick.
Yeah. Take your time, man. We got time for you, bro. Trust me, I understand.
Yeah, we joined the police line there. We held that for a while. People were yelling at us, telling us that they were veterans, that they fought for this country, and that's what they're doing now. Telling us to be on the right side of history, as if we weren't.
Right.
This one incredibly entitled woman in the middle of all this told me that she wanted to speak to my supervisor. Like I was just gonna, all right, everybody stop, or time out. She
Where's your
wants to talk to
manager,
her.
Danny? Where's your
Yeah,
manager?
pretty much.
Fuck, man.
And then
Fuck.
one other guy said that, do you think your little pea shooter guns are going to stop this crowd? No, we're going to get in that building and so on and so forth. So, that indicated that they were willing to take lethal force in order to achieve their objective. Um, but we held for as long as we could until eventually, I think in the initial few hours, we were outnumbered like
Yeah.
75-1 or something like that.
Right. Right. Right.
But so we couldn't hold that forever. Eventually, they were able to break through, and the West Terrace devolved into a series of pitched battles, like individual fights.
Hmm.
Um, One or two or three people came up to me, started pushing me back, and pushed me back against a waist high wall, where I was pinned by other officers who were getting pushed back and by my assailants. One of them, while I was being held down, one of them reached underneath my visor on my ballistic helmet that I was wearing and tried to gouge out my eye with his thumb.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, I was thankfully able to shake him off before any permanent damage was done. Um, but at that point, you could tell that we weren't able to get the line back. We couldn't hold that position. So we started falling back to sort of a staircase that leads up the presidential platform where the president is inaugurated. It's a temporary
Right.
platform, but it was there for the inauguration already. So we
Right.
fell back and then went up to the upper West Terrace, as I call it, and then fell back into the building itself, which is more defensible. It's a choke point, um, so that there, you know, is sort of the last line of defense. There, we
Right.
fell back into the building, got reorganized. I put on my gas mask because there was CS gas in the air that was starting to affect us, and I didn't. I didn't know where I was. I didn't work in the Capitol building or anything like that, so I just started walking around looking for work.
Hmm.
And then I found the hallway, the tunnel that connects the room known as the crypt to the Upper West Terrace. and there were a bunch of officers in there and loud noises. So that's where I went,
Right.
and that's where I needed to be because if they were able to, excuse me, if they were able to take
Yeah,
that
take your
tunnel, then they would have unfettered access to the rest of the building. And as far as us in that tunnel knew, they hadn't yet gained access to the building anywhere else. We didn't know that had broken in windows elsewhere or anything, so we
right,
really thought
right,
that was it. So, yeah, I mean, everybody's seen that video of how brutal that fight was, but it was a fight of inches. People in the front, maybe four abreast, a couple dozen officers in there versus the 10,000 outside who just, switched out at whenever they got tired, just keeping them out as best we could. Um,
right,
and then when officers, got injured or exhausted, they fell back until eventually it was my turn at the front. Um, and I held it as best I could. I tried bracing myself against a metal door frame, part of the structure, because every time we pushed forward, we were pushing off the officers behind us. I wanted to try and get a structural element
right,
to bolster our attack, but unfortunately, when I did that, the momentum had shifted, and
right.
they pushed forward and had me pinned against that door frame. There was one of my assailants had a police shield. He had me pinned
Mhm.
with, and the
One
rest of,
that they had stolen from the other officers?
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that was that was an MPD shield, I think.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so I was pinned with my arms at my side. I couldn't, and I was pinned straight up, so I couldn't really leverage any strength in my arms or my legs. I was pretty defenseless at that point. Um, so another assailant was able to rip my baton away after no, he grabbed the front of my gas mask, started pushing and pulling on it violently, which is, effectively punching me in the face
Right.
until he ripped it off my head, dislodging my helmet a little bit. And then he ripped my riot baton away from me and beat me in the head with it. Um, and at that point, I was feeling everything, the effects of the day, the all the chemical irritants in the air, the blows I'd taken, the being crushed and all that, and it's just feeling weak, and I didn't want to either fall out there and be a casualty or be a liability to my colleagues.
Mm,
So I did the only thing I could do at that point, which was call for help.
mhm.
And so that's what I did. And thankfully, the officers behind me were able to hear me and create enough space for me to extricate myself and get to the back of the line.
Thank God.
Um, yeah. And so I got back there. I recuperated a little bit back in the crypt. But then, I mean, I knew that we still needed every body we had. The fight was still going on.
Can you give me I know we don't have time stamps, but can you give me in relation to the level of the quell of violence, like, are we 50% through this? We're 60, I mean, do you have a sense of at least in a percentage of time between the full melee and that and the end for you?
Um, so I mean, I was there until 1 in the morning, and
That's
I
true, true.
started
Thank you.
and I
Good
s
point.
and
Yeah.
I started at 7 in the morning, so I think about it in terms of, like, how light it is outside still. And, after I
Understood.
was, recuperating in the crypt, I went back outside to join the fight again, and I was on the line there, and it was starting to get dark out then.
So, real quick, I want the viewers to take that in for a moment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
That the what we've seen you go through in video, you still went right back to the task you had at hand.
Yeah, I didn't go back in the tunnel because I no longer had my gas
Right.
mask,
Sure.
but I was afraid, I wouldn't be a whole lot of help there, but I did go get back on the line because, the fight wasn't over yet.
Amen.
Yeah, and, so I was out there for a little while, but thankfully at that point, it was starting to get dark out and reinforcements started to arrive, I believe from, Montgomery County, Maryland first is what I saw, and, when I saw them, I started clapping because,
Right.
I was just very relieved. And as more and more reinforcements started to arrive, the situation became, more in hand. Um, so I fell back to the crypt again,
Hmm.
where the rest of my people in my platoon gathered as well until we were all there and accounted for, and we stayed there until they let us go around midnight.
Hmm.
But once we were let go from the capital, these people were still in the city. They were still in DC, which is our responsibility.
That's right.
So we couldn't go home yet. We went to city center to
Hmm.
stand by and see if they were going to cause any more problems in the city. We took off all our pads and our gear, laid it on the sidewalk, and the fire department came down and hosed it down and try and get rid of all the chemical irritants on it.
Phew.
But for, I mean, years afterwards, anytime I would rip off some Velcro, I would smell it.
Mm,
It just stayed with you.
right.
But I mean, yeah, once we left the capital, anyone who needed immediate medical attention went to the hospital, and anyone who didn't was still on duty until I want to say 1 in the morning. That's when they let us go home. And
Did you need at least some medical assistance, but just ignored it?
I mean, everybody was hurt, everybody was injured,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not everybody reported it. So you
Right.
see the number 140 injured officers floating around, but it was much much more than that.
Right.
I went to the clinic the next day and saw a doctor, but I didn't need any immediate medical attention that night.
Okay. Did In hindsight, did you feel at the apex of that terrible time? Did you feel that is this how I go, or anything of that level? Or
Yeah, I
is it
mean,
like such? I hate to use the word tunnel vision, but I can't think of another word that or phrase that fits what that event was. I don't know what else to call that.
it definitely crossed my mind a few times. I mean,
Mm,
when I was on the West Terrace, I could look out. It's sort of elevated, and I could look
mhm.
out over the crowd, and I literally could not see the end of the crowd. And I used to be in the Virginia National Guard, and I was thinking to myself, like, this has to be the biggest news story in the world right now.
Yeah.
So, I wonder how long it's going to take for the guard to get here. And I didn't know that, whatever the story is with the guard, that someone was stopping them from coming.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah,
Yeah.
it very easily could have ended differently for me.
Well, I know I speak for everyone who's in the viewing space right now. We now have 32 people who jumped in, and there'll be more. They'll come in. That says we're glad that you survived that, and many of us know what it took, not just with you, but the others, to really keep dealing with that, to keep them out of the Capitol to the best of the ability, and fight for our democracy, fight for our sanity. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that it's my job, but also, like I said, I think I did an interview like a week or two after the fact, and
Hmm.
just said that, if it wasn't my job, I would have done it for free because, that's a lot of people who I knew in the army and stuff were sort of jealous in a way because I was in a position to be able to help, defend the United States, and they weren't lucky enough, so to speak, to be in that position. So I'm grateful that I had an opportunity to, defend democracy in a way that many people have not.
That maybe I hope we don't have to have happen again in our lifetimes, if ever.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah. Let's get past that day. I mean, so you ended late at night. What was the next few days of you processing the event? What was that like for you?
Well, like I said, I went to the clinic in the morning. I essentially called out sick or injured, um, and got checked out, and I was just, beaten up all over the body. But I was, in many ways, very fortunate compared to a lot of my colleagues, like Sergeant Gonell. He sustained some incredible injuries, and
Sure did.
unfortunately, he was medically retired. But I didn't have any kind of permanent injuries like that. I had a huge knot on my head underneath my hair, that I didn't even know about until the doctor found it, and she
Oh,
said, "Wow, you were wearing your helmet?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then she pointed out to me, I was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, that's not great." And, so I went and got a MRI at the hospital, and thankfully, they didn't find any, serious damage. They said
right,
that there could have been, I could have done more tests to confirm a concussion, but, if I
right,
did or did not have one, the, treatment would have been the same, just rest and don't get hit in the head anymore. So that's what I
yeah,
did. If I had known now that my, the nature of my injuries would be subject to national debate, I would have gotten the tests. But,
right, right,
I stayed home for a few weeks. I had a headache for about 2 weeks, so I'm pretty sure I was concussed,
yeah.
but, I was still very fortunate because I still have my job.
A lot of people are here are saying, "Thank you for talking to us about it." I agree, and, a lot of words of, certain thank you for your service and your survival. There's a lot of folks in here definitely thankful to hear you share this with them. I knew they would. I've been watching the crowds that care about you guys, and we're gonna get into that. So thank you for everyone who's joining us. We're gonna, make sure your words are understood. So when the investigations into how this happened, and especially before we get to congressional level, who do you remember at the congressional level or leadership levels coming to, maybe not even you directly, but, if it includes you, but coming to you guys and saying, hey, what can I do? What did that look like?
Well, the very first congressperson I ever talked to was Eric Swalwell,
Okay.
and it wasn't like some political thing. I think, like, my godmother talked to him on Twitter or something, and, we connected through social media, and he asked to meet up at, like, Union Market, and we just met, and, he asked me how I was doing and, wanted to say thank you and that sort of thing. So, there wasn't really any political machinations there. It was just,
Yeah.
gratitude. And yeah, there weren't, I didn't talk to many, I don't think I talked to really any Congress people after that, except for when the first hearing from the January 6th committee was
Hmm.
coming. I heard about
Hmm.
it through, I think, Mike Fanone. And then so I texted Swalwell and I was like, "Hey, I hear you guys are looking for police witnesses about the 6th. Should I get my dress uniform dry cleaned?" And he was like, "Let me check on that." And then he got back to me and he said, "Yeah, yeah, they'll be reaching out to you." And I said, "All right, cool." But I didn't realize at the time, like I think Mike said that, like, a lot of they were having a difficult time finding police witnesses because people were, afraid to testify. But again, that's just one of those things that, like, if you have the opportunity to speak, I can't imagine not doing that because it's something people needed to hear.
I've been pondering that, and I asked your colleagues about that a few times. Like, why did we hear from four? With all the ones that were injured. And clearly, there are some that, um, you know, had their various reasons. But why do you think that there were so many that didn't speak, considering how violent it was against them?
Well, as a reminder, I can really only speak for myself.
True. No,
But
absolutely.
speculating, I mean, there are people who agree with me, but who do not want to, subject themselves to the risks involved with speaking out.
Okay.
Like, they don't want their spouses to be put in danger or their children.
Fair.
Um, I don't have a spouse or children, so, they can't use that against me,
Right.
which is one of the reasons I do what I do, is because there's less for me to sacrifice. There are other officers who are politically apathetic. I think that's a huge,
Mm.
um, a lot of people assume that all the police are conservative, and there certainly are plenty of conservative police, but I think more than that, it's just a lot of apathy.
Hmm.
They're just more concerned about their overtime and their paycheck and their retirement, their pension, and it's that sort of selfish individualism that's permeated throughout America that the
Sure.
police is no exception to. So, I mean, it's there's no
You are indeed a community. So I always tell people, in every community, you've got all the dynamics of community. So yeah,
yeah. Yeah, then so there's people who agree with me, people who are apathetic, and then there are people who, don't want to hurt the conservative cause, so they probably wouldn't want to testify anyway. You
yeah,
find all kinds of police, just like any other group of people.
sure. I call it the Superman problem. Bravery for yourself is one thing, but knowing that there are other people you can't protect, and like you mentioned, family members or people who are close that sometimes, pardon me, sometimes it causes people to make decisions of just moving forward and let the process work it out some other way.
Yeah, it's you know, but also there are more officers starting to speak out. There was
Mhm.
an article in the Washington Post this past sixth where they talked to some officers, a few of them who were in my platoon who hadn't spoken to the media before, but they're
Mhm.
starting to, and it's cheering to see because I would do this regardless, but it does feel a little less lonely when there's
Sure.
other officers willing to do it.
Well, let's move through the fact that we've had hearings. We had criminal trials. The guys that attacked you went on trial. I actually wrote them in the article today. There were even convictions. And you went to my understanding is you went to Colorado during some of this, correct? To travel and testify in a case about the Donald Trump's actions there.
Correct. So I testified, I want to say like three criminal trials. And
Mhm.
then there was one in the pipe when the pardons came down. And then I think some of them just pled guilty. But then there were a few civil trials I testified at. One was in New Mexico,
Mhm.
where we managed to get an insurrectionist barred from office under the
Mhm.
14th Amendment. And then in Colorado, there was a lawsuit to keep Trump off the ballot for Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that I
Right.
testified in as a witness. And that went well, I feel like. I'm not a lawyer, so,
Right.
your mileage may vary, but I think it went well because the every court that has ever grappled with the decision of whether January 6th was an insurrection has said that, yes, it was. And that includes the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court just sidestepped it by saying that the states don't have authority to ban people under the 14th Amendment. They didn't even grapple with the question, but every court that has ever tackled the question of whether the sixth was an insurrection said it was.
Right.
And so the initial court, I think, did not. They said that it was an insurrection, but that, like, I don't remember what their reasoning was, but they didn't agree with us. Then the next highest court said that it was an insurrection and that Trump did participate in it, so he was banned. And then it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court did their thing.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I have traveled around to tell people about what happened.
And again, I'm glad you're doing that with us. Also, I would ask everyone who is not following Daniel's account and even subscribing, please do so today. It's a great way to make sure that we hear your voice. Um, when we let's move forward to a year plus ago when Donald Trump's running for office. When it was announced he would become president again, what was your reaction to the best of your memory?
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was a dark day. I still don't understand it. I don't understand how people. I mean, and you can't even plead ignorance anymore at that point because he had already been president once. Um, and we'd seen, the kind of person he is, and
Mhm.
enough people in enough of the right places decided that that's what they wanted again, and that was incredibly depressing as an American. I don't understand why anyone would want that again. Um, but I
Well,
guess it did.
we had to include some voter suppression and ways in which they played the game quite a bit in certain states where there's like I'm from Texas and they've been playing games with the voting as long as possible. moving where you can go vote, places you can't vote. You got to vote by this time, but not that time. And it's anti-democratic at its core across the nation.
I remember that there were, people making threats against,
Hmm.
ballot counting areas in, heavily black, areas like Atlanta
Yeah.
and, just voter intimidation. It's really anti-democratic, and I wish that we took it more seriously.
When did you get notification that the guys that had attacked you, and there was more than two, those are the ones that got nailed for it, but that they were going to get pardoned?
So I worked Trump's second inauguration,
Right.
um, all day. I was there, 14 hours.
That's crazy to hear, bro. That's crazy to hear. I want you to say, I hate to have you say it again, but friends, let's listen to that for a minute. You had to do this again.
Yeah, yeah. And they were his supporters were on a victory lap, so they were, in good spirits, and
Mm,
they when there's nothing wrong, they like to pretend that they support the police, so they were very friendly. And, I'm there regardless of my politics. I'm there to do the job. So I remember getting medical attention for someone having a seizure, um, organizer helping to protect the lines to get into inauguration, stuff like that. Um, and I was there 14 hours. And then when I got home, I read that Trump had pardoned everyone, just a mass pardon of everyone who attacked me and my colleagues and, tried to kill the vice president and members of Congress
that's
and
right.
stop the transfer of power. He just pardoned all of them. And it wasn't unfortunate. It was, sad, but it wasn't surprising because he's tied himself to the events of that day and he can't admit any wrongdoing
Right.
for them or for himself because that's not what he's capable of.
Yeah.
So and I laugh when people talk about how, "Oh, well, he's only gonna pardon the violent people." Like, "No, he's not." What about this man makes you think that he's gonna go through all these, cases, like, one at a
Yeah,
time
he
and,
doesn't read any
you
of
know
this. Yeah.
he doesn't read. He doesn't
He
read his
doesn't.
own, like, intelligence reports. He can't read a case file. He's just gonna pardon everyone, and that's exactly what he did.
Mm,
Um so yeah, I heard about that, when I got home, and the die for that was cast on November 5th of the
sure.
previous year. Um, it's just it's also funny because that morning, I heard about the pardon that I received from President Biden, um,
Oh
from a
yeah. Thank you.
from a journalist. A journalist texted me and was like, "So, do you have any comment on this pardon?" And I was like, "What pardon?"
Wow. Yeah, preemptive pardons were a part of the that last era, just in case for you and the guys, but also some representatives, Liz Cheney and others that were out there. And actually, for the record, real quick, I used to run a small effort back in the the zeros called Cheney Watch, saying that Dick Cheney's crimes of torture and etc. were going to there were precursor to bad behavior later if we don't hold our officials accountable will pay for them. And when Harry said that, well, Liz Cheney was very supportive, I had to swallow that down. Like, wait, baby war criminals in your corner, and I know that she was, but it shows how far we've come, right? That the hawks of the 2000s are now the supportive voices of democracy.
Yeah, I mean,
Easy
it's
to
the best
kill us.
that's the best thing for them in terms of, reputation, rehabilitation.
It really was, yeah. Yeah, it definitely was. The other thing is that in that time period between him getting the reelection, clearly he was going to be reelected, and the inauguration, were there any things you had to do as a person to get like counseling or something to just fortify, like work it out and prepare you, or did you just go for it, wing through?
I mean, I've seen a therapist. I've been diagnosed with anxiety and depression,
I'm sure.
uh, but I'm pretty stoic in general. It's just the way I am. So I focus on what I can do and try not to let the things that I can't control. dominate
Yeah.
my mind too much.
Do you make the fact that you have service for others part of your boat to get through life?
What do you mean?
Well, for instance, here in I live in a war that's 1400 and something plus days on, and days where it becomes how the fuck do I move on? There's always someone else that needs me to get my shit together. And so guys like you always, are kind of who same thing with soldiers who I look at and go, I know they do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't compare what I'm going through to being in a war at all, but
It
it's
is. It is. What happened
but
to
it's
you was part of a war. It was a part of a war that was launched by Donald Trump against our democracy, and you were on the front line that day.
well, regardless, yeah, there's people who depend on me, whether it's the people of DC every day who need, someone to be the adult in the room when they call 911
Yeah.
and protect them from theft and assault and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's people who I hope who hear my voice when I talk about this sort of thing and find it inspiring and find it a cause for them to get involved and do whatever they can do in their own life to further the cause of democracy.
Yeah, and actually, Roberta just used the phrase here perfect. Says it wasn't a foreign war, and most it's been since civil. Now, going back to 2020, just briefly for the point of reference for our listeners, is that the Boogaloo Boys, the phrase Boogaloo was coined in order to reference a civil war. And it was named after the '80s movie that I remember a little bit, Electric. Uh, what was it? Breaking to Electric Boogaloo. And so those guys were really hunting for a civil war. And that's why I'm saying what is happening in
Yeah,
America
they
is
made T-shirts.
yeah,
They had T-shirts that say, the Civil War, and so like people like to say, "Oh, it was spontaneous. It was a riot." Like, no, you don't make T-shirts for a spontaneous event,
yeah,
right? They don't. You don't travel from the other side of the country, bring in your arsenal with you and your tactical gear if you're not planning on committing some violence.
right. So in commemorating you guys or honoring you or however it wants to be called, I know there was a plaque that it was recently, but let's go back to the beginning of that. When someone says, "Hey, look, we want to really honor what you did," how did that develop to the best of your memory, or what did that look like for our viewers?
Well, immediately following the 6th, there was an equally brief and glorious period of unity in Congress where everyone was horrified at what took place and they wanted to, hold people accountable and praise people who prevented, catastrophe.
Hmm.
So Congress voted to give the Congressional Gold Medal to Metropolitan Police and Capitol Police, and they voted to create a plaque to honor the bravery of my colleagues and I who fought to defend democracy. That's it was made it through both houses. It was signed into law, and it was supposed to be on the West Front, visible to the public, in March of 2023. Unfortunately, the powers that be in Congress have, stymied that in some way and made it so that it did not happen. It was, years later, they were in violation of the law and the plaque was still hidden away. So myself and former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, who is also running for Congress,
That's
um,
right. Don't forget that everybody here is running for office.
we filed a lawsuit against the architect of the Capitol, trying to force him to comply with the law and install the plaque where it's supposed to be.
Right.
So recently, the Senate voted in a motion to have the plaque displayed on their side of the building,
Hmm.
and they just the other day put it up, but it's in a hallway that is not publicly accessible, so the public can't see it.
Heard that, right.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't understand what the point of a memorial is that no one can see. So we filed a motion to continue the suit, and the judge, right where it stands right now, I believe the judge is giving the defendant a chance to respond. So we'll see what happens. But I would love. I just
I
want to
like what
see.
I like what Claire from we have a viewer here. Claire from Arlington says, "Oh, the story of the plaque. We need to organize a field trip of locals to go to the Capitol. Insist to be allowed to view the plaque."
Uh, I mean, that you guys do. You do what you want. Just be nice to the poor Capitol Police officers over there.
Amen. Amen.
I have not gone to see it yet. I'm going to wait until it is where it's supposed to be.
Amen.
And I think that whether that happens because of this lawsuit or whether it happens when Democrats take back the House, it's going to happen one way or another. And I look forward to that.
Let's talk a little bit about the support from people across the country mixed with the bad. I'll start with the bad so we get to the good. Have you had death threats since January 6th?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of
Okay.
people uh, telling me that to kill myself. Who people who Photoshop my head onto like nooses and suicide instructions and stuff and send it to me in anonymous accounts on Twitter. People who say that, the death is coming for me in very poetic terms and
Hmm.
yes, but I mean, I'm a DC cop. If it's not the first time anyone's threatened me. It's not going to be the last. It's not going to stop me from doing what I do.
Amen.
Um, so they can do what they want. I don't mean to make light of it too much because it's serious and it should be taken seriously. But at the same time,
Sure.
you know, okay, I like I wear a Kevlar vest and a gun and go to work. I'm not too worried about these keyboard warriors who are
Amen.
only brave when they outnumber me 75 to 1. You know,
Right.
I don't care about you. um,
Right.
but
I
yeah,
worked
yeah,
at a terrorism firm as a researcher, and I got a call in February 2017 from ProPublica that the Daily Stormer neo-Nazi site was trying to dox me, and I think I freaked out the reporter because I was like, "Really? Yeah, what they got?" And I was like not afraid. I was like, "Oh, bro, I live in East Side Houston, man. I got yeah, just kept telling read more." I was like, "Tell me more."
yeah. So I mean, that's obviously you got to take it seriously and
Sure.
protect you and your loved ones. But at the same time, these people are just really looking to create fear. And if you
Right.
do not have that fear, then you have utterly defeated them. Really,
I want our friends to hear what you just said. When you don't have the fear they try to put into your bones, your body, your spirit. You've defeated them already.
because they
And
they don't have the courage or the conviction to actually like 99% of the time they don't have those things to follow up on their threats. Again, obviously you got to take it seriously and evaluate actual threats as appropriate, but the most of
sure,
these people are just cowards and it shows when you call them out on it.
right. Let's go to this. A few weeks back, when we had Ivan Ranklin tried to go at Michael Fanone. Um, that the fact that there are still these psychopaths out there that are trying to play psychopath games.
I I swear to God, I was in that was at Jack Smith's public
Jack Smith's
hearing.
hearing. Right, right.
Yeah, and I was in that room for, 9 hours that day. I go to the bathroom for 3 minutes and then something happens.
You
So
weren't in the room. Oh,
I
okay. Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was in the bathroom and then I got out. I was like, "What's going on?" So I missed like most of that.
Wow.
But I came out and I sat down and I saw, Fanone and that Ivan guy giving each other the stink eye. I was like, "He looks familiar. Should I know who he is?" And I was, "Oh, okay, it's him." Yeah, he's a real piece of work. He,
Yeah.
made an enemies list and put all of us on it.
Minister of Retribution.
Yeah, yeah, but he's like I said, he's another one of these social media divas, these prima donnas who just live on clicks and reactions and tries to provoke Mike into saying something, and Mike does because, that's the kind of person Mike is. And then he
Yeah.
takes it to social media like, "Oh, look at what I got him to say. Buy my merchandise." Get out of
Yeah.
here, man.
He went right to Rumble and to Alex Jones to play victim and softy.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
so pathetic. Oh my god.
Oh my God. And I want to pay respects to you through our friends here who are here to say, a lot of people over the last few years really woke up to what the danger was and cult-like persona of Donald Trump and his minions, and they're still trying to process it. But you could talk a little bit about the positive support you've had and the different types of waves of support that keep going. Where are you at with that, and how does that look?
Yeah, it's definitely cheering to see all these people out here who care about, people other than themselves, care about the country and take action to do what they can to support those who also care. I
Right.
received a lot of supportive mail after the 6th, people wishing me well, people wishing me recovery and thanking me, and
Yeah.
that was very humbling. I still haven't opened a lot of them because when you open when you open mail like that rapid fire, it's sort of you become inured to it, and I wanna feel it, when I receive that gratitude, so I open them very slowly. But, anytime I've spoken at a number of local colleges with Harry,
Yeah.
and the students who ask questions are very interested, very involved, and always come up and say thank you and make good conversation afterwards, and that's very humbling. Um, I've spoken at a few events and always try to communicate to people who are members of these excuse me, political
Yeah.
organizations that, you know, I did 1 day of work on the 6th, and it was a bad day, but, largely for me after that, it was the result was just a lot of people being very nice to me. But after that, it falls on all these NGOs and political activists to keep the fight going, and that's what they're doing, and so I'll make a point to thank them for their work because it's
Right.
important that everyone realizes that, the fight's not over, that it's ongoing, and that, every voice matters. So I try to make it clear that, we should all support each other and keep doing what we do because that's the only way that we're gonna win.
Claire again said, I'm reading some of these things that are in here. There's a few that are really good. I know you've heard this before, but the way the four of you have bonded and stayed as close as brothers is always inspiring. Tell me a little bit about those guys. I mean, we see them publicly, but how you help each other and what they mean to you.
Yeah, it is great. Clary, you're correct. It's wonderful to, have these people in my life. I had never met any of them before, I met Mike a few weeks after we did some rapid fire interviews because he was still with MPD then.
Mhm.
And then I met Harry and Gonell. I think I met them at the hearing.
Mm.
And, but obviously we've done a lot of things since then. And, it's I think I like to think that any one of us would have done it by ourselves if we only had ourselves, but to have, even a handful of other people there with you to, amplify your voice and for you is very cheering. Um,
Yeah.
and, we're very different people, in every way, and we've all got very different schedules, so we don't see each other a lot.
Yeah.
um, outside of these sort of events. But it's always a good time when we do, and it's great to see everybody living the best they can, dealing with the hand we've been dealt. Um, and yeah, they're I mean they are as they appear to be. Terry is incredibly he's the party face as, the D&D term is. He likes, he likes to talk to people. He's very gregarious. He's
He
very,
is lovable. I met him when I went to do a Hulu special on Oath Keepers in December 2021 before I came to Ukraine. And I had just a small window of time, and I went, I've already photographed around and my brain said, grab that camera and go. And I didn't actually go beeline to the Capitol. I went through some areas. I went to Washington Monument, took my aerial shot, which I didn't do before. And I said, let me go up to the Capitol again. I pulled by and I turn and there's Harry. in uniform, doing his job. I go, I, I thank you. And of the guys that I met in person, I got to meet Harry and take a selfie with him that I keep on my phone to this very day as not only a hero, but just a big lovable guy. I mean,
He is.
he's a big dude, like a big old just a hug.
So yeah, I mean that's Harry and Mike. God bless him. He's just
Yeah.
an angry man, and he communicates with a very authentic manner that I can't do myself because I'm too reserved, and I have too many filters. But I always say that between the two of us, we can reach anybody because we have very different communication styles.
Right, right.
Gonell, I feel like he's the quintessential American. He has an incredible
Amen.
story.
Amen. Amen.
If anybody who hasn't read Gonell's book yet, please do. He's fantastic story coming up from nothing, and coming up here, learning the language, joining the army, a combat veteran of January 6th. He's
Hmm.
had all that taken from him by these medical issues, and he's
Yeah.
still using his voice when he can. So and they'll talk your ear off about it if you let them.
We brought him on Twitter Spaces, and he was on there for 3.5 hours. For me, it was like 4:30 in the morning, and he was still going. And I'm like, I'm on the ground with a migraine. It had nothing to do with him. It was just timing. I'm on a migraine, and I tell my co-host, no, 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 it's cool. Just keep going because what I loved was, he's reserved. He's also a very shy person. If when you first talk to him, and you get him going more than he walks in and just takes over and like, hey, everybody, chatterbox. And once I had people back and forth with him, and the beauty at that time, we totally can't stand Elon Musk. That's why we're on this platform now. But once the callers could come in on Spaces and have a back and forth, I just had to sit back and let them do that because it was a love fest, and I think he needed that. I think he needed to hear people that really cared.
Yeah, definitely. These guys are great, and it's always a good time when I get to see them.
What are some of your objectives? Obviously, you're working, and so, and again, for those who didn't hear his disclaimer at the beginning, he's here in a personal capacity. But what are some of your objectives, and what would you like to see? For instance, on Substack, I said that people should follow your account. Let's talk a little bit about personal ambitions. As if I figured anything about you, you don't walk over with a big old list of ambitions to share with the world. But I'm going to push you to ask for a few things you'd like to see it happen.
See happen in my personal life or professional life or what?
Personal life, professional life, and also bonding with these people that are very interested in what you have to say.
Um, yeah, I mean, if I can keep writing something worthwhile that people find value in, then I would love to be able to do that. Um, Professionally, I got 14 more years to go until retirement.
Damn, bro.
Yeah. But hey, there's not many places where you can get a pension left in this country anymore.
No.
So I meant God willing, I can do that. Um, I don't have any huge professional goals. I just, I like to keep doing the best I can for the people that
Right.
I work for, and if I can do that, like even a lot of people like when you see a bad cop in the news, like it's obvious.
Okay.
And that's because that's what people see most often. I think is where you get this impression that all the police are bad. But you got to realize, like, even being a baseline decent cop is not easy. And
Yeah.
most of them are because there's like hundreds of thousands of officers in the country going to the worst days in people's lives every day, high stress situations in one of the most heavily armed countries in the world. And, we resolve all these situations with, a lot of aplomb and decency and de escalation. So,
Yeah.
if I can just be a decent cop, that's an achievement in itself.
Amen to that.
Um, and
And,
so that's
and
that's
right now we have service issues. We have these guys that have been. First off, let's not bullshit anyone. I see one percenters mentioning on it, but the 3% types, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, they all ran up to sign up for Stephen Miller's ICE. They all ran up to go throw a tactical vest on and go out and harass brown people across America. But let's bear a little witness to the police officers that still have to do the job regardless of the politics. what would you say to that across America with this obvious tension that's happening in America?
Yeah, the DHS and ICE is horrific and disgusting, and I hope that there is accountability going forward for people who are committing these horrible crimes of,
Hmm.
kidnapping people without judicial warrants and then shipping them off to these concentration camps.
Right.
It's really horrific, and I wish there was more I could do to stop it.
Yeah.
um, shoot, yeah,
Police
other
officers,
goals.
but like police officers right now who are like questioning where they should go. Like, um, I'll use one that's not a police officer example, but just to frame the thought I have is, it was announced in the last 24 hours that there are veterans who will get less therapy because the therapists are quitting the VA. They don't want to be anything part of the government with Trump around. So police officers that are in a similar quandary or law enforcement in a similar quandary, what would you say to them about that?
I mean, you gotta obey your own conscience first before you can consider, legal actions, legal remedies, legal
Right.
what you're asked to do for your job. And
Yeah.
obviously, there are different pressures in people's lives, and people have to provide for their families, their spouses, their kids. And that creates pressure to stay in a job where you might not be comfortable doing everything that you're being asked to do. But, this especially for people who are working in Homeland Security and doing these awful things, like, they're gonna be unemployable after this administration is over. Like, that 50,000 bonus is not gonna last you the rest of your life. And once, ICE is dismantled, what are you gonna do? Because there are all these states that are passing laws saying that we're not gonna let
That's right. Right.
Homeland Security guys work for our local police after this is over. So you're
Yeah.
gonna be unemployable. If you really wanna think about providing for your family, you need to get out of there now and, like, bury that.
Right. Right.
Maybe,
Right.
like, go be I don't know, work in the mine or the forest or something and just change your name and hope that nobody finds out what you've been up to, man, because I wouldn't wanna hire you if I found out what you were doing. I can't imagine a lot of other people would either.
Yeah, I this is why I said even last night, or night before last when I said it's a good thing that no one made me God because I would make them pick up Mariupol with their teeth. Um, and I'm not, I would not be very nice about it. Um, what about forgiveness? And do you have people that come to you and said, "Hey, I was part of that, and I'm sorry."
Um, in court, when I went to give, victim impact statements after people were found guilty,
Hmm.
there, at least one of them did,
Hmm.
or 1 or 2 of them apologized. Of
Hmm.
course, this is at sentencing, so it might be insincere, it might just be a show for the judge, I don't know, but I am not a, vengeful person, and I think that if we are to have any hope of moving on from this, MAGA insanity as a country, then we have to be open to, for if not forgiving people, then at least ignoring them when they move on. Because
Right.
if we don't, then they lose any possible incentive they might have to reject this MAGA community, which is what
Right.
when we have to get them to do that to break this up. And the way that happens is by giving them incentives like welcoming them back into society, into, a rational world. So
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
long as, I haven't received any nasty news or letters from any of the people who assaulted me, so I'm not gonna go digging up their names and giving them grief, even though they were pardoned early. There's a chance they might have learned their lesson, and I hope that's true.
That'd be
So
good.
if they did, then, I hope
Well, if,
that
you- if they
they.
saw this now, because these things get posted, not only here, but videos get posted to YouTube. What would you say to them? Would you say, hey, if you ever wanted to apologize, I'd listen. Sounds like it,
I mean, they
especially
can. I think,
if it was sincere.
I think that it would serve a greater purpose in providing an example to others
Mhm.
than it would be to assuage my own feelings or their own feelings of guilt.
Right.
Because we need more powerful examples of people leaving this cult behind. Because
Right.
we need to start, fixing this divide. That's the only thing that's going to be provide a long term solution.
All right, I'm gonna name drop here, or I'm gonna make you name drop. Who's the coolest celebrity that came up to you and said thank you? Because I know they all rush to you guys. They really do.
Uh,
And
I mean,
the reason why I ask is because it inverts the model of celebrity in a way that's actually good. Because not to say that some celebrities don't deserve it by being like really great people, but it really inverts like the superficial to the real. I know you're a hero to some people I happen to know that are celebrities. I won't name them here because it would be odd to take it away from you. But who did that you went, wow, I just got acknowledged by so and so.
I mean, the the biggest, like, most famous people I meet are politicians or journalists. I don't, it's
Well,
the
thank you,
same.
bro.
It's you, Chris. You are the biggest celebrity who
Thank you,
has said
man.
thank you to me.
10,000 miles away, I came with love, baby.
But
De
I mean,
Niro, Claire said Robert De Niro. Bobby, Bobby comes to bat with you guys.
yeah, I have not had the pleasure of meeting old Bobby, but he's been kind enough to say that me and the other guys were heroes to him, which is incredibly generous, and I'm
Right.
thankful for. Um, and but I mean, other than that, Nancy Pelosi, I don't know.
Sure, sure. But I mean, I was sort of making you on there because we didn't come up with any crock pot recipes as we promised. But
Yeah, I
next
know.
time we show up with some crock pot recipes and we'll talk about Love is Blind.
Absolutely.
We have a long season ahead, and we actually I started doing this. I told him yesterday. I called Sergeant Gonell and I said I got on camera after 4 years of broadcasting here, after being someone who just wrote behind the scenes and was a researcher guy, because he sat in his car and had an impromptu conversation. And as you guys know, like Michael has a whole fleet of media that just and he's on fire on this platform. But when Sergeant Gonell got in his car and kind of freeformed his thoughts, I went, I think we can all do this when we have something to say and we have something to teach.
Absolutely.
So that's
It's
why it's easy
always
when I'm the host and I can just ask you questions.
there you go. Yeah, I always love hearing what these guys have to say, hearing different perspectives, and
You got it.
yeah, it's great to hear from them.
Well, I hope if you get a chance, proof the article I wrote about you, mainly so I got it right, because I wrote it with a lot of respect, a lot of love, and I think you deserve it, bro. You really deserve it.
Thank you.
We have to codify it down in history. We have to prove that we pay attention. Number one, that we don't forget, and also at some point when we are no longer here, someone else will read this down and go, "Now what happened again?" And so tell me if I got it right. And thank you for everything you've done so far. And also thank you for your time tonight.
Absolutely, and, thank you for doing what you do, covering the war over there. I think it's, incredible what the Ukrainians have done to defend their homeland from this 3-day incursion to Kiev into this 1,400
Right.
day, you know, survivalist war that
Yeah.
they're incredible veterans fighting for their homeland, and it's really inspiring, and I hope that it ends in their favor.
I can tell you tonight, I won't call her out. There's actually a very well known one. I just interviewed her the other day. She was watching the entire time. She was in captivity for over 2 years, and she stopped to come see how you were doing. And there are people here. They care about what happens with you guys, and you're in many ways you're a hero like the guys I know here, who were accountants and lawyers and just normal people, and then they had to just do what time asked them to do, what the circumstances asked them to do. So respect right back. I'll see if I can get a team to send something out to you. Something from Ukraine with a lot of love. See you
That'd be
soon.
very cool. Thank you.
Anything you need from us, let us know, okay?
All
Take
right.
care.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, Chris. Good
And
night, everybody.
to our friends, please follow Daniel's account. Danny's a great guy, and follow the account. Take a paid subscription. Don't be afraid. Put $5 on there, and let's encourage him. Here's why: he's in front of us. I'm gonna say it with him here. I have my side screen where I can read their comments. Um, the more you respond, the more he's likely to write that wisdom for you guys. So that's the way we do it. See you soon,
All
my
right.
bro.
Take care.
God bless you. And to everyone, don't forget tomorrow night we will have Sean Penner and I have our weekly. You're very welcome, Gene, and everyone else. We will have our weekly report on Ukraine. We're actually going to talk about the conditions of Russian captivity for civilians and defenders. It's a very, very important conversation. Do not miss tomorrow night either. Sean is going to lead the discussion. We've had a long talk about this week, and then Moja podruha bude tut. My friend Aziza Eskander will be here to share her perspective on being a Crimean artist. And I know her from my friend Yarek and Rick the Ukrainian, and also the Defender rallies here every week. And I can't wait. And so we have those two programs tomorrow night. And I ran as fast as I could after playing for a couple of hours with some wonderful musicians because there was nothing going to keep me from being on time for Daniel. So literally, I popped down, sat in my seat. As soon as I got done, boom, hit went live. So there's been no time to waste. See you soon. 24 hours from now. We'll see you then. Slava Ukraini, Heroim Slava и Пиздец Российской Федерации. Пиздец Российской Федерации. And don't forget, subscribe to Daniel tonight. Show the support and the love by going over to that account and getting it done. We'll see you soon.